Cinesmack contains spoilers of the spoiling type. If you don't want your spoilers spoiled, please turn back now. Otherwise, enjoy the show!
Gentlemen, let's broaden our minds. Lawrence?
Ladies and gentlemen! Welcome to the main event! This is Cinesmack! And the winner is...
Hello, Cinesmacketeers, and welcome to bout number 91 of Cinesmack, the podcast about films by filmmakers. I am your host, Mike Keeler. Joining me tonight is our panel of award-winning judges. First, filmmaker and owner of Cheshire Moon Films, Tom Haggis.
I don't feel comfortable talking, so I'm going to sign the entire show.
Got it.
Okay.
All right. Second, filmmaker and owner of Arizona Ink Studios, Andrew, you're one of my favorites, Zumwalt.
This is Halloween. Oh, sorry. This is
I'm sensing a theme here.
Water.
Third, writer, actor, and director, Kyle. That was me signing his nickname. Fine.
Oh, thank you. Look, I know that they make a point of this being racist in the movie, but I would have been totally cool with a third Barack Obama term.
Fourth, filmmaker and owner of One Genome Short Productions, Gabriel. I'm TS motherfucking A. We handle shit. Roald.
Happy Halloween.
You can check my pants out anytime you want, Gabe.
I just might do that.
I request a pat down when I go in your line.
Body cavity check.
Full body cavity search. He's not even flying.
I'm just here to use the Starbucks.
These are movie tickets he's using.
Yeah. Did you write? This is just a sticky note with, you wrote this ticket yourself, didn't you?
Well, thanks to my crazy schedule, we're actually recording on Halloween, which is kind of neat. I don't think we've done that before. So let's.
Oh God, Tom's a ghost.
It smells Halloween.
Let's go ahead and poke the monkey, find out what we're talking about.
Ladies and gentlemen, monsters and sociopaths, welcome to the main event. Tonight, we have a pair of scary good modern thrillers. It's a fight to the death to see who is the modern horror champion. In the first corner from 2017, written and directed by Jordan Peele, starring Daniel Kaluuya, Allison Williams, and Bradley Whitford. Get out! In the second corner from 2000. Just in case. From 2018, written by Brian Woods and Scott Beck, directed by John Krasinski, starring Emily Blunt, John Krasinski, and Millicent Simmons. That was again. It's a quiet place. Oh my God! No! Not the face! Eddie! Not the face!
Well, there you go. Let's. I don't really have too much to say about these films. Not yet. I want to hear what you gentlemen have to say. So let's start off with writing.
I always like to look for the commonalities in the movies we smack together. And usually they're, grouped by holiday, by genre, they're close in rating, they share an actor or director, etc. This one, I think, are the two hardest movies you would ever want to pitch to a Hollywood executive. Because these are crazy stories that would be hard to explain to someone your vision for them. And you really have to have someone take a chance to make these movies. Oh man, that's what really struck me watching these movies. I'd seen both these movies before. I watched them again. I really enjoy both movies, but from a writing aspect, we complain a lot. Well, I complain a lot, and I think society in general complains a lot about remakes going on. And these are two really original ideas for a film that, took a lot of guts to bring to the screen, because there's no guarantee these movies work. They're helped by having really creative people, and in some cases, like star power attached to them. But it takes a lot to put these two movies on the screen, I think. And as far as the writing goes, I thought they're both really solid films, all kind of let down in little aspects. A Quiet Place to me is really good at not treating the audience like holding their hand. You start the movie, it's very quiet, and it's never going to get much louder. It really is a lot of quiet time. And it doesn't really shy away from that or play tricks with that a lot. It just deals with the silence. But at the end, or in little shots you see down in the bunker, where you see his list of questions about the invasion, it's really written like a 4-year-old would come up with these questions, and it's aimed at the densest person in the audience of like, why here? How armor? Here? Why not eat? It's like the weirdest things. And that to me was just kind of took me out of it a little bit. Also, Deus Ex hearing aid. It's a little strange to me too. But Get Out 2 I thought was really interesting. You didn't know what was going on for a long time. And then at the end turns out to be like a ritualistic brain surgery. Just a little strange twist. I enjoyed both movies. That they're both really written well and take a hell of a lot of chances to put them together. Really creative and different stories.
Well, I think it's interesting how both of these films turn out in the end to be kind of science fiction films. I mean, A Quiet Place turns out to be very kind of obviously science fiction, but I felt like Get Out actually was kind of subtly also kind of science fiction a little bit. And I also like, that's one of my favorite things as far as horror movies. I'm not a huge fan of horror movies in general, but I really seem to enjoy ones that mix horror and science fiction together, because it kind of grounds that horror in reality a little bit, or at least potential reality. And I thought that was interesting how both of these kind of shift from like kind of everyday stories about, just everyday people, and all of a sudden become kind of these strange, frightening science fiction type films. And I enjoyed that a lot about both of these.
Yeah, I like what Kyle said about taking risks, and I find people that say that there's nothing new and original in movies out there. I find them insufferable. That just like, we make a fucking effort. They're out there. You just have to go out and get them. Yeah, and and I think these are two that are perfect examples of that. So. The stories on both of them are really great. I thought so I saw Get Out last year, and then I saw Quiet Place a couple weeks ago in prepping for this. And I didn't think that I couldn't imagine a movie that would be able to keep up with Get Out, because I loved it so much and it was just so groundbreaking. And but Quiet Place was, I don't know, it was such a fun ride, and I just I say this every October show, I don't like horror movies. But since watching these, I've watched each of them 2 more times because I like them so much. And for up until this year, Scream was my favorite scary movie, and now it's and now it's these. But yeah, the stories on both of them are really well thought out. Get Out gets bonus points because it's able to work into like some really heady social discussion into the movie. And in terms of, I mean, it's a fun movie, but at the same time, there's a lot of, very intellectual stuff, built into the entire movie. And Quiet Place, on the other hand, is really good, and they took a lot of time to work out all of the little details, and they asked all the little tiny questions that would come up in this. And there's a couple, I'm sure we'll get to them later on. But I think story-wise, they're both pretty equal in that respect.
So what does a screenplay look like that doesn't have a lot of dialogue and is mostly just action? Think about what the screenplay for A Quiet Place looks like. Yeah. And that ties in a little bit to what Kyle was saying, like how do you sell that? Like somebody who's evaluating these screenplays and looking at them, that it would look a lot different than what you would expect from most screenplays, because there is very little dialogue. But as a filmmaker, everybody knew that I would like this movie because they're like, oh, this is totally up your alley. Very little dialogue. Because I've never been a fan of a lot of dialogue. Don't tell me what's happening. Just show me what's happening. And, there are some major exceptions to that. If you can write dialogue like Quentin Tarantino, go for it.
Yeah.
But most people can't. So instead of just like, clubbing me over the head, telling me what's going on in this movie, just show me. And that's one of the things I really liked about A Quiet Place. And I would like to, I wonder if it's available anywhere. I would really love to see what the screenplay actually looks like compared to other movies. Because I think it would be very different.
Well, there's the question too of if John Krasinski wrote and directed it. So how much detail did he put in the script, and how much did he bring out? He's like, well, I know what that's going to look like, so I don't really need to describe it in the screenplay.
Right.
I think if you don't have John Krasinski and Emily Blunt attached, this very likely is a student film or a film that not many people see.
Right.
It really helps to get this done when you have that kind of star power. But man, it's a ballsy move because it could fail in a million ways. It's such an atypical idea for a story. Yeah, I think I'll buy you that screenplay for Christmas, Gabe.
I'd like.
It's like 4 pages.
I think the screenplay look close to a 48-hour film project screenplay. This happens here.
This happens. Yeah.
Just talk about that. Go. Yeah. I do want to point out. We keep talking about the risk and the ballsiness of the story. Both of them, I agree, are unique and is very refreshing, especially in the movie community, to see someone write something that is this kind of fresh feel on a movie. It's exciting almost to know that there are still good films that can be made left in this world. But both films were independent, and I think that's super important to know that, John Krasinski, he actually, he helped produce it. Jordan Peele helped produce his movie. And so there was that I'm taking a risk on myself. And it really puts us home to, well, people like me, and probably I would hope speaks to some of you of, we make a lot of movies and we put ourselves out there. We are telling our story. We are putting our money on the line. We are making something that we are passionate about. And so to have that, I thought was really cool that it made it such a good both of them, such big mainstream movies in a sense, where they started off not being per se mainstream by a Paramount or a Warner Brothers or whomever. I also kind of, someone said that they didn't really like horror movies for the most part. I'm a big horror film kind of I really like the Freddy, Nightmare on Elm Streets. I guess I kind of saw both of these written more of a suspense thriller because they kind of hid the truth, but then released the truth at the same time. And so it really built that, like The Quiet Place. I just remember there were times I was like gripping because I'm like, oh my God. There was just really intense moments. And with Get Out, it was more of like, I'm like, what is happening?
Yeah.
It was more of that suspense of where, holy buckets, what is something? I know something's going on. I just don't know what.
Yeah.
And
you're almost trying to guess the twist.
Yeah, it led me into the movie.
Yeah.
Well, and I noticed it was a very slow burn too.
Yeah.
It doesn't throw you into it. It just kind of
it's a great build up.
Yeah, it takes a while for it to kind of reveal itself to you. And then you're like,
yeah.
And then at the end you're like, holy shit. Well, and we'll get into that. Maybe we'll get that into acting and overall and all that kind of stuff. But it's like, oh my God, what just happened? This is nuts. And who's the real villain here? And yeah, it's crazy.
I give points to John for writing a quiet movie. Castaway is the only one that I could ever think of that would be a similar type of movie where there's really not. It's mostly action. There's really not a lot of dialogue for most of that movie, and to have actors, especially child actors, to be able to pull it off and still enjoy the movie, not be like, it was kind of hokey, is saying something a lot about how it was written and how, well, we'll get to later to that. But, and then someone also said something about, I think it was Gabe, you said something about you don't want to be told something, you just want to see it. And I totally remember that was one of my biggest things when I was growing up. One of my English teachers used to tell me about my stories. Show, don't tell. And that has stuck with me so much. And I completely saw that in A Quiet Place. It was a show, don't tell movie. With that being said, so the first time I watched A Quiet Place, I did not know that there were subtitles. So I did not have them on. So, and luckily I know sign language. And so I'm interpreting for the rest of the family here and explaining to them kind of what they were saying. But I'm like, I just want to watch the movie. But what I found, what I was going to say was I found something so amazing about it was I understood what was going on in the movie, even though we didn't have subtitles. And I thought, that in itself, because I watched it now again with subtitles, and it does make a difference, but it was amazing that we didn't have them the first time and we still understood the scene, the emotion. We knew kind of what was being said, and that for itself, that says something about how it's written and how those emotions can play when you're showing something, intense or soft or loving or whatever. That speaks for something there.
Yeah, I'm surprised that those subtitles weren't just automatically on. Those particular ones.
Yeah, mine were automatically on.
Sure. Well, and I was more surprised when someone said that. I was surprised that they weren't burned into the movie in the sense of like you go to like a Star Trek or Star Wars and they have, creatures speaking. The subtitles are part of the movie.
Right.
So I thought that was really fascinating that wasn't the case. The only other real similarity that I pulled out of Get Out being minus the fact that I think someone said something about social interactions and the times. It reminded me a lot of The Man with Two Brains, which is, I know, a very old movie, but
that's a good
once
poll.
The reveal, I was like, that it kind of reminded me a little bit of that. Now, I'm not saying that they copied it or anything like that, but it made me think of that movie after I got the reveal. I was like, that's an interesting correlation, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah. It's been a while since I've seen that one, so I don't recall.
Well, and there were so many subtleties in Get Out with the writing. Just a little, like at the end when she's sitting on the bed and, this is normal everyday life. I'm eating my little cereal and dipping it in the milk and listening to my music. Finding the next person I'm going to auction off. So I agree. I think this is maybe an agreement across the board. I agree. They are so well written in that aspect that they're just damn good movies.
Well,
I'm done now.
I want to point out real quick that Brian Woods and Scott Beck wrote the screenplay. Brian Woods is from Davenport, Iowa.
For A Quiet Place, right?
Yes, for A Quiet Place. Mm-hmm. And Scott Beck,
right.
I believe they both went to the University of Iowa. And that's how they kind of met and got together. They've done some stuff around the state before this hit.
See, guys?
Yeah.
We have a chance. All of us.
It's a nice connection. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I saw them on TV. They were on the news one time talking about it. And I thought, when I first heard of A Quiet Place, I thought that, that they had written it and then that John Krasinski had simply directed it. But it sounded like John Krasinski came in and made some changes to it. And that the original may have been a little bit more adult and a little bit more, perhaps more violent or something. And Krasinski kind of softened it up a little bit more for a family kind of audience and that kind of thing, and changed it a little bit. The other interesting thing is that, we were talking about how unique these movies are and how it would be a hard sell. But it sounds like that A Quiet Place was popular enough and did well enough in the box office that they're looking at possibly doing a second one. So that'll be interesting to see. It's like, okay, well, what do you do? Because on a certain level, the whole no talking, very little dialogue, mostly silence kind of thing is a gimmick that you can get away with once. But can you sell it a second time? Can you do that again? Or how do you take that gimmick and
make it
take it up a notch or twist it a little bit?
Right.
Yeah.
And I tell you what, but I now understand why everyone was talking about eat your popcorn before you go into this movie. Don't
right. You're gonna piss people off. Yeah.
Oh yeah, I totally see it. So I will say there's one negative about the writing in A Quiet Place that I do want to bring up that I felt was odd, and I think part of this is because we didn't necessarily know when the invasion happened or when everything started, but the pregnancy and the birth, if she got pregnant after the whole thing happened, it just seems really odd that it would be very irresponsible in a situation, because for a fact that a baby is not going to be quiet.
Right.
So, and that was the only part that I was a little unsure of, and perhaps I missed the timeline enough to know that maybe she was pregnant before, the invasion, because you dropped right in the middle of things that happened.
She wasn't. She wasn't pregnant in the opening scene.
Oh, see?
Because it was like day 89, and then it jumps to like 4 or something.
Mm.
So she gets pregnant. True. She gets pregnant between the two. So, I mean, I can't imagine birth control is readily available, and they're two married people. I imagine,
I get it, but
absolutely quiet sex is like the only thing they can go with. So, but I mean, check the calendar. But no, I think it's an interesting twist. As far as the sequel is concerned, I was reading interviews with John Krasinski, and he was talking about that we might not be following this family, but we may go somewhere else on the planet with another group of people that are dealing with this, and a whole other set of problems that can arise from these monsters coming. And instead of a small family out in the rural area, it could be someone in the city trying to go through what they're going through. And so
Sure.
I know it's. So I was really excited about it. I'm like, oh, there's a lot of different ways you can go with this, and I'd love to see. I'm excited to see what they come up with.
I hope they bring him in. I hope he gets to be a part of it.
He's writing it.
Oh, good.
He hasn't said whether or not he's directing it. Probably not, but he said that they already signed him on to write it. So.
Well, and what you were talking about the aliens, and that's another one of the things about the writing of this that I liked is that they don't again, they don't tell you everything. They don't beat you over the head with an explanation of what are they, where did they come from, how long have they been here, that kind of thing. We get to see some of that stuff. We get an idea that there was some sort of an invasion. We get a vague idea of the timeline. But there's a part of me that appreciates not being just spoon-fed every detail about what happened. I'd like to think that the writers and the filmmakers maybe had those things in mind, that maybe they knew that for themselves, but they didn't feel obligated to reveal all of that to us. And
I love that.
Yeah, that's one of the things that I appreciate about it too, because it makes you think about it. It's more interesting to me. There are times when in a film when you don't get certain information that it can be really frustrating, or a film that ends kind of ambiguously can be really frustrating sometimes. Sometimes it works, but very rarely. But in this case, I felt like I was happy that I didn't get just like given all of this information and in some sort of dump of like, okay, here's what these aliens are, here's what we know about them, here's when they came, all of that stuff. I appreciated that personally.
Right, and at the same time, I mean, it was only a 90-minute movie. They had plenty of time to put that stuff in, so I thought it was it's not like it was cut for time or anything like that. It was just, that's what I think I really like about it. It's such a slick, polished movie, and
and it was more about it wasn't about the aliens. The story wasn't about them. Yeah, it was about the human reactions to those aliens and how humans were dealing with that and reacting to it. And I think that was more important.
I think that's your writing comparison right there between the two movies, because both movies were about the actual families and what was actually happening in the social situations between the two. I guess that's, like I said, it's your connection, because Get Out was about this family that you weren't really sure what was really going on, but was supposed to be this white picket fence. He was in an interracial marriage or relationship, and that was okay. And it was this kind of family situation. And then, of course, everything you just said about the family and Quiet Place, and they both really tied into that family, that personal level that you really, I guess I connected with. I mean, you can really feel and be like, oh yeah, that would really suck to be in that situation, and vice versa. Oh, I don't know if, I guess I would have ran long before he did.
Right.
But,
right.
I'd be like, you're a cute girl and all, but there's others. I'm out.
and one other interesting thing that I just thought of about when I was watching Get Out, I thought, oh, this is a little bit reminiscent, just slightly, of Being John Malkovich, about being like living your mind inside of another body kind of thing. And the interesting thing is that Catherine Keener is in both, so there's like a
connection.
Kind of a connection there. Yeah. But yeah, I thought that I don't feel like Get Out was derivative, but there was a part of it that made me think of Being John Malkovich a little bit.
All right, boyos, gonna have to end the round here. Let's go ahead and put it to a vote. Kyle.
Oh boy, I feel like we could have talked about this forever. I'm gonna go for A Quiet Place, but it's close. It's really close.
All right, Tom.
I barely even talked about it, but I'm gonna give it to Get Out because, I like the stories. Yeah.
Andrew.
Well, A Quiet Place, you got to get out of. So, I'm going to give it to A Quiet Place because I felt important, because I could interpret the sign language and no one else would.
Gabe.
This is a tough one for sure, and I think all of our votes are probably pretty close. I'm going to go with A Quiet Place because I like the idea of writing a movie with very, very little dialogue and to support it and being able to successfully tell a story.
All right. Writer, co-producer, and director Jordan Peele was inspired to write Get Out by Eddie Murphy's stand-up film Eddie Murphy Delirious. Murphy joked about horror films including Poltergeist and the Amityville Horror and asked why white people do not leave when there is a ghost in the house. Murphy joked that he was showing that as he was showing his wife around a beautiful house, if he heard a ghost whisper, "Get out," he would immediately tell her, "Too bad, we can't stay, baby." Screenwriter Scott Beck and Brian Woods, let's see, that is really not the way you spell that. Brian Woods revealed that Paramount Pictures originally intended to incorporate A Quiet Place into the studio's Cloverfield film franchise. They said, we were actually talking to an executive there about this film, and it felt from pitch form that there might be a crossover. But when we finally took the final script into Paramount, they saw it was a totally different movie. The screenwriters and director John Krasinski were ultimately relieved and grateful for Paramount to finally decide to allow them to make film as a wholly original standalone film rather than to make it as a part of the Cloverfield franchise or any other film franchise for that matter.
Me too.
Me three.
Yeah, it didn't need to be added in there. I like it the way it is. All right, let's move on to our second round, which is acting.
This one, I think, is going to be a little bit easier. I think that everybody in Quiet Place were very good. I don't want to take anything away from them. And John Krasinski is very good. And Emily Blunt was really good when she wasn't covering her mouth, which she seemed to do a lot in this movie. Like she was constantly just like covering her mouth. And Millicent Simmons is also really great, and she's really great in Wonderstruck too, if you haven't seen that. But I think the acting in Get Out is one of the things that makes it really powerful. I think directing is the key thing in Get Out, but I don't
pun
think
intended.
I don't think Get Out works. Anyway, so I don't think Get Out works if you don't have a solid cast behind it. The directing is very strong, but without Daniel Kaluuya's, I mean, so the scene in with Catherine Keener in the my mind is just all over the goddamn place. When she first puts him under, his acting in that entire scene is absolutely incredible, and I think the way that they use eyes in the movie is very powerful as well. And there's just a lot done with very little words, and I feel bad because Quiet Place does the same thing, but Get Out I think says more. And I've gone back and watching Get Out a second and third time. What I've found is really interesting is that it's like a completely different movie the second time you watch it. Knowing everything, knowing where everything is going, it is an absolute trip. And I've never done a movie like that where you watch the second time and you know where it's heading and you get to enjoy it from a completely different perspective. I mean, it's like getting up and walking around to the other side of the table. And a lot of that is due to the actors in it. So, and I love Stephen Root. I love everything he does. He plays a blind guy really well. He does that a lot.
I really like Stephen Root as well.
But I will tell you, my favorite actor in all of Get Out is Lakeith Stanfield, and he was in Sorry to Bother You, and then he was in this, and he's in Don Glover's show Atlanta, and he's really, really good in that. He's the reason actually why I keep watching the show, because he's very funny, but he's also at the same time he's kind of like a wise stoner, and he plays it really well. So he's now becoming one of those actors where I seek out because he obviously has an eye for good scripts. So anyway, that's what I have to say about that. That was like 30 seconds of content in 2 minutes.
Well, I'll stretch that out for you.
Please do.
I agree with almost everything you said, Tom. Next.
Right.
Oh,
No. Okay, I got to give a special shout out to Bradley Whitford, who I really enjoy and have loved since Billy Madison, and is also really good in Cabin in the Woods. If you've not seen that,
Oh yeah.
but man,
we did.
Rel Howery. When I saw this movie, I thought this guy he's going to be a thing now. Like, he's so funny, and he's just going to be a thing. And then I'm turned on Fox or I can't remember what it was, and he's got his own show. So I'm glad to see that, because I really think he had one of those breakout comedy performances where you're like, oh, we're going to see this guy for a while. And yeah, the acting in Get Out, they have to ride this line of this. There's something going on, but nobody's tipping their hand too much. Everybody's being a little bit weird. There are moments where you start to think people may just be crazy. Like, is this character crazy? Is this like an unreliable narrator sort of thing? Or are we in this twisted, weird world where none of this makes sense? And man, they just play it so well. Quiet Place really does not have that many people in it. But the cast list is 5 or 6 people, really? But damn, I imagine that's a really hard job. You get
7.
7. You get almost zero dialogue to convey what's going on. You have to do it all with your expressions, and man, that's got to be a tough job. But the nail scene to me was just such a great build up. You know what's going to happen. It's still surprising when it happens, and for me, I sit in the theater watching it, I can almost feel it in my foot. I've done that before when I was a kid, and I was like, oh my God. And the only thing you want to do is scream and fall, and you can't. Like, that was terrifying. Seems like that. I love the way they build the suspense. Yeah, the acting all around in these 2 movies was superb. I really enjoyed them.
Yeah, I have a hard time not being biased toward A Quiet Place because of Emily Blunt. I'm a little bit.
She's
I'm
amazing.
I'm a little bit biased. It may not simply be her acting, but yeah, I think you guys have covered it pretty well. That the acting in both of these is actually quite excellent. And I think we have to give a little credit to the younger actors in A Quiet Place as well. For young kids, they did a great job, and were able to express themselves through their facial expressions and their body movement and their posture and that those kinds of things. And I think that would be hard. That would be hard for an adult actor, much less a child actor. But I think Tom was right. The acting in Get Out all around was just top notch. Yeah, Daniel Kaluuya, when he's like when he's being hypnotized, he's basically paralyzed, and yeah, the only way he can express himself, like he said, is through his eyes and his crying, and that just that fear and that terror on his face is it's pretty incredible. How do you call that up? How do you do that on cue, probably repeatedly, and do it so well? It's pretty impressive. A lot of good acting in both films.
Well, and that crying wasn't like your traditional rom-com girl crying.
Right.
I mean,
right.
that was
it was real tears.
Green tear that it was beautifully done.
Yeah, it's like cry without moving your face.
Right.
Like,
or anything,
what?
really.
That's crazy. Yeah.
You guys have probably summed it up. The only one thing that I at least pulled out of it was to be an actor and have to act in a movie where I know that I'm not going to get to say much, and I'm going to have to act visually to be able to portray my dialogue, to be able to portray what kind of a person I am, to be able to display emotion towards my other co-actors. That takes skill in itself. And I think that there has to be I got to give it a little thumbs up and +1 on those, because that's hard to do. especially in those kind of situations. Acting is it's kind of just, there were two different types of acting, and they both were beautifully executed. All the actors did what they should have done in the appropriate, suspension of disbelief universe that they had. And like I said, Castaway is probably my only other comparison, to have someone like Tom Hanks on screen not say anything and be able to feel empathy for him and feel something. It's the same way you did with the kids and with John and Emily. Their characters, you felt bad for them at the same time that you wanted to help them, that you wanted to be suspenseful. And then at the same time in Get Out, you had that, again, that connection in that family. You're like, yeah, you've done the, I'm meeting the family for the first time. Their stuff's kind of weird, but it's the person I'm with. So, cool. And, and the way that it was all portrayed is just, it's intense. That movie is so intense, and that it's because of the actors and the way that they carried out that emotion. Of course, there was more dialogue in that, but you get the point.
Hey, Mike, do you have any trivia about Daniel Kaluuya like crying? You want to?
Yes, I do.
Okay, I'll leave that to you then, because it's interesting. I just kind of looked up some stuff. So, go ahead.
All right. Are you guys done talking about the acting?
Did they shove things under his fingernails? Because that just seems weird.
No, toenails.
Don't think so. Yeah, toenails.
All right, let's put it to a vote. Tom?
I gotta go Get Out on this one.
Andrew?
I'm really torn, but I think I'm going to go with A Quiet Place because it's really hard to act without saying anything.
Gabe?
Yeah, I think, again, these are really close. These are tough to judge, but I'm going to go with Get Out. The performances were fantastic.
All right. And Kyle?
Oh, I was on mute. I will also go with Get Out.
All right. Okay, actress Millicent Simmons has been deaf since infancy due to a medication overdose. This was the second film that she had starred in, with Wonderstruck, which Tom had mentioned, being her first. That's just my little piece for A Quiet Place. Daniel Kaluuya was given the lead role on the spot after nailing his audition. Writer, co-producer, and director Jordan Peele said Kaluuya did about 5 takes of a key scene in which his character needs to cry, and each was so perfect that the single tear came down at the exact same time for each take.
No way.
That's
How
crazy.
do you have that control over
nuts.
That's insane.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's absolutely
impressive.
crazy. He deserved it too. I really did enjoy watching both of these films, and I'm glad to hear you guys say that this is so close. Glad to hear that. All right, let's move on to our third round, which is directing.
This is what I think about directing. It's a hard chore, and I call it a chore because there are so many things that you have to keep in mind, and you have to keep on your plate, and you have to know what's going on there and over there, and this guy, and you have to walk into the scene and be able to show your actors what is inspiring them, and there's just so much involved. For Get Out, there are shots and scenes that are just so meticulously planned and perfectly laid out that it makes for a masterpiece of a scene to sit and watch. There are times you're just like, holy buckets, there's so much going on. What is happening? And that takes a director. I have said before, you can have terrible actors and a great director and have a great movie, but you can have great actors and a terrible director and have a terrible movie. Because if the director cannot focus what is actually happening in that, and Jordan Peele, I think, is this his first directing? I don't know.
Yes, it is. His first feature film.
I would never have guessed that from watching. If you didn't know anything about, I would have never have guessed that it wasn't directed and shot by professionals that have been doing it for years and years and years, because it was just well done. Even some of the, what we consider science fiction-y kind of parts in the surgery room, the way that the Dutch angles were used and the way that some of the movement of the cameras, and I mean, all of that was just so meticulously planned, down to him scraping the chair and you not really noticing that until later when they actually show it to you, but it's there earlier if you look. And it's so fascinating how that, I hope to believe that it was planned that way, because it shows. Now on the converse to that, with A Quiet Place, to be an actor and direct your movie is one of the hardest things to do. I'm not a good actor. I would like to say I'm a so-so director, but I've done it. I've played both parts, and it's hard. And to stay in the moment and be able to not only direct something where it's like, okay, you're going to go over there, you're going to go over there, and you guys are going to look at each other and just make me feel something because you don't get to say anything, and then you're going to get scared, and then I'm coming in, so we all ready? All right, let's do this. I cannot even imagine how much, how much more difficult it is to be able to put yourself into something that you are so passionate about because it is your project, and have to direct people on emotion and direct acting without that dialogue, and be able to say, I need more expression in your face. I need this, without being like, yeah, you look hokey now. So both of those films, they have an exceptional directing style for both of the styles that they were going for. And it's also John's first directing debut as well.
And he directed The Hollers before this. And
he did.
And
he did some episodes of The Office.
Yep.
Well, yeah, but The Office. Yeah. I mean, that's one thing, but I mean, this is an impactful. I mean, The Office is funny and it's great, and we all love it. Well, at least I think so. But but this is, I mean, a feature going from a TV to a feature, I think, is a big change. I didn't know he did The Holler, so I guess that does add one thing under his belt. But still, well done on both parts.
I mean, I think John Krasinski did a really good job with Quiet Place, and I feel, put it this way, I feel Quiet Place is edited really, really well. And John Krasinski obviously gave them the pieces that they needed to put it together, but the difference I think I see between the two is that, well, Quiet Place, its strength is in the editing. I think Get Out is strength is in the direction and knowing where to put the camera and how to compose the shot, and put everybody inside the frame. How they're I mean, I don't say it's flawless, but it's really, really good in Get Out. And I know that we include editing when we talk about directing, but I just want to talk, about John Krasinski and Jordan Peele, because one of the things that Jordan Peele does really well is not only uses his camera, but Daniel Kaluuya, when he uses his camera in, because we talked about eyes, and then the camera is kind of an extension of the eyes, and that cool kind of duality where he uses his DSLR camera to basically like peek in on other people, on things that are happening around him. But then at the same time, when he wants to, he can use it as kind of a shield and kind of separate himself from what's happening around him. And he kind of engrosses himself in his camera. And it's this really kind of, there's two different ways that he can go about it, that he can spy on people, but he can also pull himself out of the scene, which I thought was really cool. And then it's the extension of that use of eyes that is used all through Get Out. And then the performances that he brings out of the actors is really good. The watching it a second time and knowing where things are going, it's really fun to watch the scene where they're taking him around the party and kind of introducing him to the potential buyers. And the people are saying these really odd, weird things. And the first time you watch it, you really don't know where this is going. But the second time, when you go back through and watch it again, and you watch Rose's face, the first time through, you kind of take it as this really weird, like, boy, that was kind of an awkward comment. But when you watch it the second time, she has these moments of like, shut up, like you're gonna ruin this. And they hold on those shots just long enough for it to work without, giving away the game. And this is just like the technique of directing, and not even to get into, just the, deep social commentary that Jordan Peele was making with the movie as a whole, about, appropriating, blacks and, silencing them and marginalizing them. And it's such a powerful movie. And I think that the big difference between the two, so like Get Out was a fun ride. And I was just like, I got chills and I thought it was so much fun and the way it made me feel. But Get Out like shook me. And it was one of those movies where it kind of reached out into like my life and the world that I live in. And because it did that, I feel it's a superior movie. And this is probably the easiest category for me to vote on, because it's one thing to kind of scare people and rattle them a little bit, but to like unsettle them and make them like, yeah, you're watching a movie, but there's some shit going on in the world around you that we're commenting on too. And that sticks with you when you get done watching Get Out, weeks removed from seeing it. And I was still just like questioning, interactions I've had with people and stuff that I've seen in the news, and like, what are we doing and where are we going? And that is a very tough thing to do and do well in a movie, and maintain the quality of the movie as well without it becoming preachy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I think it's interesting that both of these movies are directed by actors, people that we think of as actors,
and comedic actors too.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's kind of in some ways outside of the kind of what the genre we're used to seeing them in. And so, I always wonder about that. That I've heard stories about, like actors, directors who are also actors getting good performances out of their actors because they know how to communicate with them. They know exactly what it is to say and do to make these actors bring out these performances. So, and I think both of them do quite a fantastic job in both of these. One thing I wanted to mention about Get Out was the cinematography. In some ways, I felt like at first I was thinking about it. I'm like, well, the cinematography isn't really jumping out at me. But then I realized, oh, wait a minute. It's actually really great. The lighting is beautiful in certain scenes, and the composition of the shots was just fantastic at times. And I'm like, I'm kind of getting into this. I really getting into Get Out. I really enjoyed some of the cinematography in Get Out. I don't recall, I think maybe these are topics for the overall and that kind of thing. I don't recall, I think about sound and that kind of thing with, strangely, ironically, with A Quiet Place. That's one of the ironic things about it is the use of sound. But I think maybe that's for the next category. But as far as cinematography goes in A Quiet Place, I don't remember anything that really, really stood out to me. But it didn't have to, because that's not what it was necessarily about. It didn't rely on that as much.
Yep.
But I felt like the cinematography in Get Out was really quite beautiful in an understated way. There's not a heck of a lot of camera movement that I remember in it. Some of the shots that stood out to me most were static, just really well composed, beautiful shots.
Yeah, there was a lot of panning beauty shots in Get Out, I feel.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember. I'm trying to remember what the maybe some of the establishing shots and those kinds of things were. I don't recall specifically. I just remember shots like where he was sitting in the chair, and like he's sitting in that room, and that antiquated TV comes on and that kind of thing, and just the composition of those shots. There was just this almost too overt a balance to those shots. Like everything was so well balanced in those shots and that kind of thing. And then of course we talked about a lot of, I think close-ups are really important in Get Out for a number of reasons, because of the things that we talked about with eyes and their expressions, but also because those close-ups give you a feeling of claustrophobia. It kind of it closes things down in and around you a little bit and makes you nervous a little bit, like we're maybe just a little bit too close, and that makes me nervous, kind of thing. Those are the kinds of things that I think of when I think of Get Out. Although you guys can probably expand on that a lot.
He broke the rule of thirds in a lot of his shots, and he put everything perfectly balanced in a lot of shots.
Right, very centered.
But it worked for him. A lot of times, everyone's like, "Oh, don't put your figure right in the middle of the frame. Move him off to the side, make it interesting." But it works so well for the story he was telling to break that rule. And it's fascinating to see the shots that are perfectly centered, and then there are ones where he's in the chair where it's off center, and those are later in the movie, and I thought that was really fascinating.
Yeah, it's good visual storytelling. One of the rules of writing that I hear over and over again is now I've just completely spaced it off. Wait, I started that sentence and now I don't know how to finish it. Sorry, I'm on pain medicine. Did I mention that, guys? I hurt my back.
It'll come back.
One of the rules of writing. Okay, one of the rules of writing I hear over and over again, especially talking about fiction, is don't break the rules unless you're going to succeed. So if my favorite author is Cormac McCarthy, and if you've ever read any Cormac McCarthy books, his writing follows zero rules of standard punctuation, anything that would make it easy or standard for you to follow. Nothing is said or is usually tagged with who said it. Dialogue doesn't start and end with quotation marks, but it flows, and to me, it's brilliant and amazing. So if you can break the rules and get an amazing product, and you have that talent and that ability, that's, I think that is a unique gift. A lot of people can make good or passable things using the rules and the things that always work. But if you can transcend that, you break the rules and make something beautiful, like we're talking about with some of the shot composition and the way it's what you would consider standard or done by the book. I think that's great. I think A Quiet Place from a director's point of view. When I think about John Krasinski, I always think about Jim from The Office. And if you had to have anyone tell you how to act with your face, Jim's like the dude. He did it all the time on The Office with his sly looks and his, turn to cameras and just sort of the way he would do that. So I think he's uniquely talented at portraying that. And having Emily Blunt around, who's a fantastic actress, doesn't hurt either. But they did get great performances out of kids, which to me is a lot like kicking in college football. Once it happens, you have no idea if it's going to go through the uprights or if it's going to go way left into the stadium. So you can put a kid in a movie and they can completely tank it just because they, no fault of their own, they're kids. Not always professional actors with lots of experience, but good kid acting can really elevate a piece. Man, yeah. Has anybody ever won an Oscar for Best Directing with the first movie they directed? Because Jordan Peele did that, right? He won for Get Out for Best Directing. Or was it Best Writing he won?
Yeah, he won for Best Writing because...
okay.
Who won for Best Directing last year?
You're
Yeah, 'cause he didn't win
go-to
Best
Oscar
Directing.
guy, Tom.
I'm looking.
So are there a lot of actors turned writers who
Guillermo
won
del Toro won.
Oh, okay. For Shape of Water.
For Shape of Water.
No. Yeah.
So that's got to be a rare crowd, though, to like write your first feature film script and win an Oscar for it. after being a comedic actor. That's pretty crazy. And yeah, he absolutely nailed it. His first time out directing, you'd never know that he'd never directed a feature film before. But no idea that he did not. And I'm sure he had a lot of good people around him, but he just absolutely crushed it in a way that, you know, it's hard to kind of quantify for someone who doesn't have any experience doing that. Yeah, remarkable. Both these films are more than capably directed. I think they're both. I agree with what Tom said about the editing in A Quiet Place. That really helps shape the story. And now I'm just rambling. Like I said, I'm on pain medicine. Did I mention that? I hurt my back. I think I talked about that earlier. I may be stuck in a time loop. Yeah, I'm going to stop gushing. These movies are fantastic. Yes, amazing.
All right. You guys have anything else to add?
I have your answer. Do you want to know who's won for their directorial debut?
Who's that?
Delbert Mann won for Marty in 55. Jerome Robbins for West Side Story in 61. Robert Redford for Ordinary People in 80. James L. Brooks, Terms of Endearment in 83. Kevin Costner for Dances with Wolves.
Oh.
And this one's a surprise one. Sam Mendes for American Beauty in 99.
Oh, really? Interesting.
Yeah. And it's hard to imagine that he ever had a first film, but
Couple actors in there too.
Yes.
Crazy.
And yeah, because Barry Jenkins did not win for Moonlight. So there you go.
All right.
Thank you, Tom.
You're welcome. That's what I'm here for.
I also thought it was interesting that when John showed Emily, his wife, the script that she wanted, she was like, I have to be in this movie. And for him to say lovingly that directing her on set was magical, I think is pretty impressive. I mean, it is Emily Blunt, though. So that's...
Oh, I just hate how cute and happy they are. Doesn't it just drive you nuts? Just like both really attractive and good at acting and successful. Damn them.
She's
Still not.
Assholes.
I still probably won't go see Mary Poppins.
Oh, I'd go see a rated R Mary Poppins with her in it. That'd be just wonderful.
I thought
That's
what it was.
Really, that sounds really dirty. It's like yeah, it's like Deadpool with Mary Poppins.
I'd
watch that. That'd be fun as hell.
Isn't that movie called Cherry Poppins?
You're all over it with the porno movie titles.
That's a bazinga.
A little too fast.
My favorite porn movie title I ever saw was San Fernando Jones in the Temple of Poon, which was Ron Jeremy dressed up like Indiana Jones. That's pretty cool.
Wow. How did we get here?
I'm on pain. I'm on pain medicine. Did I mention that? I hurt my back.
No, really?
I think I'm in a time loop.
Thanks.
All right. Let's go ahead and put it to a vote, fellas. Andrew.
I'm going to have to give this one to Get Out. It's close, though, but Get Out.
Gabe.
Yeah, another close one for sure. Get Out for me as well.
Kyle.
Get Out.
And
Is that how you say it?
I already know. Yeah. Yeah, sure. Tom.
With all due respect to Jack Ryan, I'm also going to vote for Get Out.
All right.
And it wasn't close for me at all. So
Which
if that's
Jack
okay.
Ryan?
The newest Jack Ryan.
Oh, not Alec Baldwin or any of the other.
Harrison
No, the
Ford.
Jack Ryan
or
series.
Ben Affleck.
Yeah, Jack Ryan, the TV show.
Chris, wasn't it Chris Pine,
Chris Pine.
at some point?
Yeah. Chris Pine was the last one before John Krasinski.
A lot of handsome men have been Jack Ryan. How come there's no fat guys? Like, let's get a fat Jack Ryan. It's the world's ready. Jack Black.
We could call it Pork Rinds.
Oh, come on, man. That's another good porno parody, though.
All right. Jordan Peele directed scenes in Get Out while doing impressions of Tracy Morgan, Forrest Whitaker, and Barack Obama. I just found that really funny.
He plays the ghost of Duke Wellington in Big Mouth. If you haven't seen that on Netflix, that is great.
Yes. Season 2. Awesome.
Actor-director John Krasinski has said that the single greatest compliment he received regarding the film was in a tweet from the master of horror storytelling himself, Stephen King. A Quiet Place is an extraordinary piece of work. Terrific acting, but the main thing is the silence and how it makes the camera's eye open wide in a way few movies manage.
Nice.
That'd be all right to get a tweet from Stephen King about your work.
That's a high compliment.
It is. All right, let's move on to our final round, which is overall.
Wow. Both great films. This has really been kind of a fun discussion. I know we, in a certain sense, we started Cinesmack with the idea of talking about really terrible films to a certain degree, but that can be a labor sometimes because we have to watch them and we have to discuss them, and then we try to find positive things. It's really refreshing to talk about a couple of really great films like this. It's been quite a joy. I think one of the things that I noticed, I was talking earlier about A Quiet Place and how ironically in a movie about being perfectly silent all of the time, how big of a role sound plays in a film like that. And it's just, what can you do? What kind of subtle things can you do with the sound to heighten the tension and, bring attention to certain things in the scene and that kind of thing. And I just really think it's fantastic, what they did with the understated sound in it. Although I do feel like, ironically, they leaned a little bit on kind of shock kind of scares where, they know it's totally silent in the theater. It's really quiet right now. And then wham! There's that thing that hits you like really loud. And just the sound itself just, makes you crap your pants. But it works for something like that. And I think it's really, I think there's an irony to the fact that a movie about complete silence makes such effective use of sound. And that's one thing I really enjoy about A Quiet Place. And then as far as Get Out, I thought maybe we might want to talk about the music a little bit. I really enjoyed the music in Get Out, and I thought music was pretty effectively used. They didn't use it all the time, but when they did, I thought it was effective. I enjoyed it, especially that song right at the beginning during the titles. There's something reminiscent of kind of what's the I have Deer Hunter in my head, but that's not it. The one
Deliverance.
Deliverance. There, thank you. I couldn't think of it. Yeah, it had a Deliverance kind of like backwoods kind of feel to me. I don't know. What did you guys think of the sound or music in these films?
I'd be surprised if Quiet Place doesn't get a sound editing nomination. I mean, that's always where my mind goes. I finish a movie and I'm like, I wonder what Oscars I can win. So that would be it for me.
It's got to pull you in and have enough going on that it keeps you interested. You don't wander away. And when there's not a lot of dialogue, it can be hard to kind of keep your attention focused sometimes. At least for me, I'm a big dialogue guy. But man, they do it expertly. Both these movies kind of suck you in and you get into the world, and they don't let you out till it's over. And to me, that's a sign of a good movie. I'm not thinking about what else is going on, totally focused on what's happening. And then Get Out, trying to figure out what the fuck is going on. I know something's wrong, and I'm just trying to figure out everything that's going on. And in A Quiet Place, just waiting for something terrible to happen. I mean, the movie starts with tragedy. And becomes about, surviving in the face of this nightmare that these people live in. And some of the things they have to endure, it's crazy. It really, both these movies to me were visceral kind of experiences. You get in there and you're like, this would be terrifying to live through. I'm glad, in the end, I'm glad it's a movie. But yeah, the sound work was great, especially for A Quiet Place, where it really has to be. Poor sound design for that could ruin that movie.
Right.
I found it really fascinating that they actually had, when the sound designer was brought in, they specifically were like, there's not going to be a lot of dialogue, so we don't give you a lot to work with. And the sound designer actually took the movie and made sound a character, and they actually used sound to portray conversations that were only visually happening. For example, when you switch between the two kids, one, you could hear all the ambient noise, it was clear, and then they switched to the girl that couldn't hear and everything's muffled and you're in her head, and it was a shot, so you're in her, what she's hearing, what she's experiencing, and then they switch back and you hear all the ambient sound and it's what they're experiencing. And to have that change really puts you more connected to those characters and inside of that movie at that point in time. And that sound editing right there, treating it like a character, like it was something, instead of, well, we have to have this noise, otherwise, the guy walking isn't going to be believable. Treating it in that way is a different outlook on how you would do sound editing. I would be terrified if someone came to me and said, "Hey, so sound is a character. Let's make it important." That takes some skill, and that goes beyond the story.
You have to give it its own point of view because, like you said, it's a character in the film. You have to see things almost through the difference in sound and the way people perceive the world. Yeah, and that's a crazy skill to get that across. And it must have been written in, or the idea was there before, because he got the shots, right? You get the shots to make that happen.
Well, but also the shots, I would say, are your more traditional. When you're having a conversation in a dialogue moment in a movie, you do a lot of over the shoulder, switch back and forth. Sometimes the opposing person is talking, et cetera, et cetera. He used sound to portray where that person who was talking, in a sense. Mm-hmm. And I thought that was really fascinating and really well done in that sense.
Oh, it's great at the beginning when the rocket ship goes off and she doesn't know what's wrong. Yes. And her parents turn. Oh my God, that was amazing. I love it.
I would also say, just kind of for overall, I think Tom earlier said it. A Quiet Place was a great ride. It was a fun movie. I enjoyed watching it. I could watch it 100 times and it would still be enjoyable. Get Out really had that emotional attachment to not just this is really messed up of what's going on, but also there's kind of a little bit of this is what's really happening right now. And it's kind of scary to see our society portrayed in a twisted way, but those are real things that are going on, that discrimination, that segregation that is currently still happening. So I think the portrayal overall, the emotional feel of each movie is completely different when you walk away from them.
So the one thing that I want to talk about, so I mentioned that I've seen Get Out a couple times since then, and one of the weird things that has never happened in the thousands of movies that I've seen. So I go sit down and I start watching Get Out again, and I know where the movie's going and I know all of the characters' motivations at this point. And there's this I don't want to say like an out of body experience, but I wind up like watching myself watching the movie for the first time, and I start asking myself, like, why did I trust Rose? Why did I trust her parents? What did she do to earn that from me when all the signs are there are all along the way that there's going to be some kind of deception? And it's, and that unsettling feeling that sticks with you for the 2 weeks after you see it for the first time. And then I'm just like trying to like deconstruct like my prejudices and the benefit of the doubt that I gave certain characters but not other characters. And when I saw, this is so weird, but when I saw a policeman pull them over and that there was a black man involved in it. And all of a sudden I start making assumptions about what's about to happen and how this is going to go down. And he asked for his ID, and I was like, oh, yep. That's how it kind of goes. And Rose like gets in the way and it's like, no, you can't do that. Don't take his ID. And I saw it the first time as some kind of noble act that she's standing up for her black boyfriend when she's just doesn't want a paper trail that, that Chris was there.
Right.
And suddenly, like, I'm just all of these assumptions that I had when I watched it the first time, and enjoy it as much as I did, and as much as it rattled me. It was so weird to go back and, I don't want to say like watch it from my own sunken place, but there was this kind of like watching it, and questioning why I thought of things the way I did. And I think that's the genius of it. And there's so much to it. I mean, it's incredible.
Part of that is because I think, well, at least I'm assuming that everyone else that has ever been on that, you have a girlfriend and she wants to take you home to her parents. It's that awkward, your family is a little different, and I guess I just kind of chuckle along with it because I'm with you, so I kind of just have to accept it, but I don't really know what to do. That moment, those moments are visually seen. I mean, even like when he talks about how he was a smoker and they're like, oh, well, we don't approve, and he's just kind of like, well, okay, I'm gonna do it, but I'm doing better because Rose wants me to be better. I mean, it's just those weird family moments from another perspective. And then on top of that, it was almost, when they were first introduced, it was like almost this, oh, well, you're black. Well, neat. That sucks. But then you finally slowly realize that wasn't the reason why they were, oh, well, we disapprove of you dating a black guy. That it didn't even come in, but you had that sense when you first started, even when the brother showed up, you felt that there was maybe some weird racism almost, but then you realize it really wasn't the case. I guess in the look of, we disapprove of this, it's more of, we're racist because we are doing something different. Because we want to.
Yeah, I thought it was kind of funny, actually, how they basically portrayed white people inhabiting black people's bodies. How they portrayed because it was like, okay, why are these people acting so weird? What is wrong with these people? And I just thought it was really I thought it was very funny how they decided to portray that, and I think that also says something about, how we perceive black people, because we're like, they're not acting like black people. Yeah. Which it says something like it plays on what you're saying,
your preconceptions.
It makes you kind of look at yourself watching the film, like, why am I thinking that? Because that's not what I expect, these people to act like.
Yeah, almost like. Go ahead. Oh, I was almost like the blacks in the story are better than we are, except for their minds.
Yeah, right. Yeah, that's part of it too. Yeah, like there's this kind of
There's that weird thing, and it's kind of it's definitely touched on in the movie, but I don't think it's discussed very often. Is people think it's okay to give compliments to a specific, or to make assumptions or have stereotypes about a race if they are flattering. So. You say, black people are better athletes, Asians are good at math, etc. Those kind of stereotypes people don't see as harmful because they think of them as complimentary. So when and they don't realize that it's like dehumanizing and you're making assumptions and you have preconceptions about people without knowing them as individuals. And so when they go through and Bradley Whitford kind of gives him that corny white guy trying to connect with a black guy thing about, I really would have voted for Obama for a third term. You perceive that as him thinking, I'm saying something complimentary, but, not thinking about it from the other person's perspective, or as being a prejudice or a preconception you have of somebody without knowing them as an individual.
Like I'm connecting with you and your people in that sense by saying, "Oh, I would have voted for a black president again."
It's like a weird way to try to get into a group you're not a part of or you feel separate from, and finding like a commonality, you think, but it's really kind of insulting because it's still a preconception and a prejudice, a belief you have about somebody. You're making assumptions about them without knowing them as an individual.
Like all black people like Obama because he's black.
Right, exactly. Like if you would say something like, that to someone, you're making the assumption that they share that belief based on their race, gender, religion, whatever. Yeah. So that's a really like an untouched, I think, kind of not talked about facet of racism or prejudice, is that idea that we somehow think it's okay if it comes off as complimentary, and that it's not still prejudice.
Yeah, and that whole moment when he actually says to him when he's in the chair and he's on the little TV and he's like, "I want your eyes. My brain can take better pictures, but I need to be able to see." And it was that very almost evilness when he said, "I want your eyes." And it just kind of that I thought was a really powerful dialogue, and the way they cut back and forth between the two of them was quite remarkable, and you just really saw that moment.
What did you guys feel about the ending? I felt like it was an interesting turn that Daniel Kaluuya's character. What's his character's name? I don't remember right off the top of my head. He's the one who feels threatened the whole time, and then he ends up, being extremely violent and killing all of these people. And I'm not. It's one of those things like in a film where it's like, okay, well, those characters are set up in such a way that you feel like they deserved it. But I felt like it was a little bit interesting twist at the end that he ends up kind of almost being, he's the one who inflicts the most horror on physically anyway on these other people. And I'm just kind of wondering like what your guys' thoughts are on that.
Well, I found the role reversal actually to be fascinating, to where, well, first of all, it was kind of hard to believe that the TSA would save the day. Because I mean, really,
don't let him talk about TSA like that, Gabe.
Yeah, right. TS motherfucking A.
But I found that the role reversal was really fascinating. We're making all of these realizations of stereotypes and the ways that we judge certain people because of necessarily their beliefs or their race, and yet that character in the movie is making those stereotypes throughout the entire movie and is warning Chris that this is how white people do this. They take the black people and they kill them, or they do this and they make them zombies and slaves and everything. And then in the long run, he was right. And it's an interesting twist on the fact that stereotype got shifted too. So you kind of saw it in both aspects, that there was this, I don't know, moral compass where he was actually predicting this is going to be bad because they're white people. And then it turns out that they were bad And it's a really fascinating twist on the fact that where we realize what we see and realizing of what that character sees and how everything is all kind of twisted in between each other. I thought that was really fascinating. But he was a TSA agent. They're cool.
Yeah, sort of the B plot of this movie is something that could be. It almost comes off like a short comedy film of this TSA agent uncovering a crazy crime and being right and coming and like saving the day at the end.
Right.
And that's really, odd contrasted to the sort of serious nature of the rest of the plot, but it fits in with the general weirdness, eeriness, like difference of the movie. To me, the ending of Get Out felt like an episode of The Twilight Zone, where something is going on and you don't know what it is until the end, where it's like revealed to you, right? And then now you're in this world and you understand and you're kind of seeing the end of your interaction in this world. It's kind of contained in there. Because this is, like you're talking about, like a science fiction. This kind of brain surgery is not medically doable, I'm pretty sure. But yeah, it felt to me like an episode of The Twilight Zone, where there's something off, but you don't know what the hook is till almost the end.
And it turns out the one special guest of the entire episode was actually right that they exposed at the very beginning, but you don't realize until the end.
Yeah.
All right, boyos. Let's go ahead and put it to a vote. Gabe.
I'm going to go with Get Out.
Kyle.
Oh man, it's close. Oh boy. I'll go with Get Out.
Tom.
Yeah, I'm gonna go Get Out as well.
I already had it marked down. Andrew.
Unpredictable.
Again, really close, but I am gonna skew it because I am gonna go with A Quiet Place. The editing and the sound and everything else, and maybe the sign language a little.
All right.
That really put her over the top for you, that ability to be an interpreter.
In A Quiet Place, the family name is Abbott. An abbot in Catholicism is the leader of a monastery. Abbots in monasteries, like Mr. and Mrs. Abbott, lead self-sufficient communities, which often support themselves through means such as farming, like the family in the film. Some monasteries are also silent, and so members will not wear shoes, will communicate infrequently with spoken language, and will pray together in silence like the family in the film. The main theme for Get Out, and I'm going to butcher this name, Skilza Kwa Wahenga, was sung in Swahili with the exception of the English word brother, a word which composer Michael Abels felt had a special universal meaning among black people that did not need translation. According to Abels, the voices in the song represent the souls of black slaves and lynching victims trying to warn Chris to get away. The translation of the lyrics is, "Brother, run, listen to the elders, listen to the truth, run away, save yourself."
Wow.
So I those were my two favorite pieces of trivia after watching the films. Kind of adds a new dimension to it. All right, let's go ahead. Let's try that one again. Let's go ahead with our recommendations for the remaining few hours of this month. And we'll start off with Kyle.
Oh, shit, me first? I had a couple. I'm on pain pills. Have I mentioned this? See, if you say it enough times, it gets funny again. I just have to hit the number. I think it's like 4 or 5 I'm on.
Yeah,
now.
three or four.
Three.
Okay, cool. Why am I completely blanking on my recommendation? Okay. So Gabe actually gave me my idea for my recommendation earlier, saying that he liked science fiction and horror, my recommendation is Event Horizon, which is a super unsettling. Why is Mike laughing? Was that your recommendation too?
Maybe.
No.
But go ahead.
Okay, I'll recommend another Sam Neill movie.
No. Go ahead.
Event Horizon, really unsettling, crazy science fiction. I would put it akin to, it felt like Hellraiser at certain points. Some of the visuals, very jarring, otherworldly, kind of about a ship that goes to unknown space and comes back one day. And then when they board the ship, they realize it's been someplace very, very dark. So yeah, I would recommend that. Good movie. Got Larry Fishburne in it before he became like big Larry Fishburne from The Predators. If anybody watched that? No. Okay, talking to myself. Yeah, check it out. Event Horizon. I think Mike likes it too.
I do like Event Horizon. I really do. It is unsettling, and I think the most unsettling thing is when they play some of the recorded playback.
Oh God.
Oh
Yeah.
my
Yeah.
God. That
It's
just
terrifying.
sends chills down my spine. Another reason why I was laughing was he also Paul W.S. Anderson directed that, and it was his next movie after Mortal Kombat, which we talked about last month.
Oh, it's way better than Mortal Kombat.
Oh.
Wow,
Yeah.
that's the
Wow.
next gen.
All right, Tom.
Hi. Good. What's up? How you doing? So I didn't have one ready. So actually, Kyle, I'm not sure what you recommended because I wasn't listening. I was trying to find something.
Oh, thanks.
but
I
I'm-
appreciate that.
I'm very sorry. I imagine it was. Oh no, it was Event Horizon, wasn't it?
It was.
I caught that right before I took my headphones off. So anyway, but I'm very confident in my choice. I think it's a good mix. Like I said, I don't really like these scary movies and thriller. You should look for thrillers online. And don't expect it. But anyway, my choice is a movie from about 2 years ago with Amy Adams called Arrival.
That's a good flick.
I think Arrival. And looking back on, I think Arrival and Quiet Place might have been a really cool, a good fight as well. There's a lot of overlapping themes in terms of visitors from other worlds and that kind of thing. But it's the story of these creatures who arrive, and this linguist is in charge of going in and establish communications with them. And it's really trippy in the way that it's put together. And the reason I didn't have my headphones on because I was trying to look for a YouTube video to tell me how to pronounce the director's last name because I still haven't figured that out in the last 3 years.
Me neither.
Yep.
Yeah,
Dennis
I don't know how to say it.
Villeneuve.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Villeneuve. I don't know.
Villeneuve.
Something like that.
Villeneuve.
It's Villeneuve.
Yes,
Seriously?
I believe so.
I thought it was Frenchier than that. Anyway, so
Villeneuve.
it's a really good movie. I think the problem with Arrival is it's very understated, and it's a slow burn. The payoff at the end is really, really worth it if you just let your mind let the movie take you where you need to go. If you do that Shyamalan thing where you're trying to jump ahead and figure out where it's going, you're not going to have as much fun. So I recommend Arrival, and I really hope we can find a movie to put it up against next year because it's a fun one to talk about.
Put it on the list.
Yeah.
All right,
Absolutely.
Andrew.
Okay. Well, sticking with the thriller, science fiction, kind of suspenseful type movie that you're not really sure what's going on until the very end, I would recommend, if you haven't seen Moon, that's a really, really good.
Yeah.
Sam Rockwell.
Yeah. It's a great movie.
I believe we discussed that on the show.
Oh, see? For my Halloween pick, it's definitely Scout's Guide to the Zombie Apocalypse. And if you haven't seen it, it's a great, fun, energetic, entertaining ride that I still laugh about when I watch today. And I've seen it lots. Best cold opening in any movie is Scout's Guide to the Zombie Apocalypse. There you go.
Wow.
I just
that's a
want
bold
to chime in
statement.
on Moon for a second. Sam Rockwell pretty much acts with himself for 2 hours. It's awesome.
Yes.
If you like Sam Rockwell, he's just fucking having a blast by himself for like an hour. It's great.
Right.
Yeah, we did Moon versus Gravity,
Oh,
episode 35. All right, Gabe.
Well, I'm going to recommend a movie I just saw very recently, just kind of on a whim, because I remember seeing previews for it and then heard nothing about it, and then I saw the Blu-ray in the store and I said, I'm going to buy it. And I watched a movie called Upgrade. Have any of you guys seen that?
I have not.
I've heard of it.
It's it's written and directed by the guy who wrote Saw, which is probably for many of you, maybe that would be a good recommendation this time of year, but that may not be something that many of you would be that would draw you to a film like this. But it's a science fiction film about a guy who becomes paralyzed and then has a chip implanted in his neck, and the chip kind of takes control of his body.
Yeah, I remember this.
Yeah, and I saw a preview for it, and I'm like, there was some really cool cinematography stuff going on in the preview, and I'm like, oh, that looks kind of fun.
Yeah.
And I thought it was Tom Hardy. I thought it was a Tom Hardy film, but it's not. It's a different guy altogether.
It was, Laurel, his brother.
Laurel Hardy, yeah. A guy named.
We got an Abbott reference and a Laurel and Hardy reference.
Wow, look at that! What do you
Boom!
know?
My night is complete.
The actor's name is Logan Marshall Green, and he looks a hell of a lot like Tom Hardy. And it's an interesting concept where this guy his wife gets murdered and he gets paralyzed, and then he gets this chip implanted and he goes on kind of a revenge mission. And it's in the not too distant future, and it deals with a lot of things, a lot of technological kind of issues. There's they show autonomous vehicles and lots of drones and artificial intelligence kinds of things. And I think they left a lot on the table because it kind of turns into, because it was written by the guy who wrote Saw. There's a little bit of unnecessary gore at times, although it's somewhat entertaining. There's these crazy action sequences. It's a little bit more about getting into these action sequences where this chip takes over and fights for him. And some of the camera work is really kind of cool.
Amazing.
Yeah, it's really cool what they do, and I'm kind of curious how they did it, because it's like it follows him around and it has this very mechanical feel, which I think is appropriate for someone who's basically like a robot. And some of the cinematography is very nice. It's very dark but very very atmospheric. And some of the characters aren't very well developed. The dialogue isn't perfect. It's not a top-notch film, but I really kind of enjoyed it. It was very entertaining, and it definitely makes you think about some of what our technological future may hold. So if you get a chance, it gets a lot of great reviews on IMDb and stuff too. Check out Upgrade.
I'll give you a +1 on that one.
Okay.
Did you know if you Google Logan Marshall Green, the second picture that comes up is Mad Max?
Really?
Yeah, it's Tom Hardy is the second picture that comes up. Is Mad Max.
Yeah, no, they look remarkably similar.
Oh my God, they do.
Yeah.
It's discount Tom Hardy.
Yeah.
TV's Tom Hardy.
Yeah, there you go.
Exactly.
I felt the same way, Gabe. Last month when I was traveling, I was in the hotel room, turned on TV, and Death Wish, the remake with Bruce Willis, was on. I'm like, oh, okay, I'll watch this. And I watch it, and I'm like, this is actually well done. I'm enjoying it. And at the very end, directed by comes up by Eli Roth. I'm like, wow, that was not what I expected. Yeah, from Eli Roth. So I've kind of had that hit me too. So just like Tom, Gabe, and I think, no, Kyle didn't say it, but Tom and Gabe have. They're not really fans of horror films, and neither am I. I do like thrillers. I do like science fiction horror. But I wanted to recommend a show on Netflix, which is actually Making a Murder. Did that just come out all bumbled up? Maybe I'm on the same pain pills as Kyle.
He swallowed the last part of murder.
Yeah. Making a Murderer.
Making a hamburger?
Making a hamburger. And part 2 recently came out on Netflix. So at night I've been binge watching Making a Murderer part 2. If you guys have not watched it, it's filmed over a 10-year period. Stephen Avery, a DNA exoneree who will, in the midst of exposing corruption in local law enforcement, finds himself the prime suspect in a grisly new crime. And part 2 is kind of the follow-up about what they are trying to do to get him out of prison and his nephew, Brandon Dassey. So if you guys do get a chance, watch Making a Murderer. It really makes you think about, like, okay, I'm here at this time. Okay, I left at this time. And it's weird how it kind of wires your brain to think like that. Because yeah, I'm not saying that I think the police were corrupt in it. I just think that someone really dropped the ball. So check it out. Making a Murderer Part 1 and Part 2 on Netflix now.
You can say it, Mike, because I already screwed everything up by saying don't trust the TSA.
Oh, yeah. No, I'm not going to say it because I really don't know.
Sure.
The series, after watching the first part, I'm like, I really don't know if he did it, if he didn't do it. There's so many conflicting. And then the second part, you really start to see his new lawyer is just ripping away at the prosecution's case. And there are a lot of giant holes in the case that were never explored. So, yeah, it's kind of neat to see how that goes if you do like true crime. And to me, this would be a horror movie for myself if I got, sent away to prison for something that I possibly did not do. Yeah, I think that would be awful. And he's been in there for 10 years now. It's crazy. And before the first time he was in, it was like another 10 years or 13 years or something like that.
You can't go to prison, Mike. You're too pretty.
Yeah, I wouldn't last. All right, let's go ahead and poke the monkey, find out who won.
Ladies and gentlemen, may I have your attention, please? Your winner by decision is Get Out!
Boom! Really? It started much closer than it ended.
I think Tom got in your head.
Yeah, he did. Tom hypnotized us.
I had some very good points. Also, I'm drinking tea.
I stood my ground.
All right.
Well,
I think you all made the right choice.
All right. Where can people find you? Possibly take your eyes, maybe, or just come up and shush you, Kyle.
You don't want my body. It's worse than yours. I promise.
Did you hurt your back?
I know I haven't mentioned that, so I feel like you're inside my head. So get out of my head. You can search me on Facebook. If you Google me, the second picture that comes up is also Tom Hardy. But it's like fat Tom Hardy on a bender, like when he was really off his rocker. Like, probably he is most of the time. Seems like an intense dude. Anyways, I'm on pain pills. Next, please.
Tom.
Let's see if we're on Facebook. I am, and we are on Vimeo for the time being, but they're have lawyers sick on me, so we'll probably go somewhere else. Yeah. They claim that some of the music I have, the licensing company came after us, even though we licensed it legally, but they're like, we don't care. So I'm dealing with these lawyers in London to keep our website up and running. So,
wow.
Yeah, it sucks, but we pay a lot for the music, and then they don't back us up. It kind of fucking blows. Anyway, but people can also find me visiting holdout Bradley Whitford, quietly asking him to return for a West Wing reunion and planning the lobotomy that will make it all happen. You're welcome, Aaron Sorkin.
Andrew.
Yeah, all over, I guess. number one place, I guess, ArizonaInkStudios.com. Check out the new website. Get involved. It's a very social and very environment for people to talk and do stuff about movies and things. And then, your Twitters and Instagrams and YouTubes and all those fun things to share. So, yay.
Gabe.
You can look me up on Facebook, although I don't really spend a lot of time there these days. Or you can check out some of our films on onegenomeshort.com.
Man, it must be nice to have a website.
It is. It's awesome.
It's great. Especially when you have your web designer on staff. It's awesome.
That's where I would hang. That's where I would hang
in.
out. I would hang out there.
On the website?
Yeah, I'd be there all the time. I'd just be doing AMAs all day long.
You can follow me on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. You can find the studio stuff on YouTube since we don't have a website. Well, we do. It'll just direct you to the YouTube page. But for Cinesmack, for this podcast, we would appreciate it if you could leave us a review on iTunes or whatever podcasting service you use. It's important. Leave us some stars. And if you don't like us, then tell your enemies about us. Maybe they'll like us. You can contact us at cinesmack@gmail.com. We like getting listener email. Follow us on Twitter and Facebook. Just search Cinesmack. For November, we give up on the Western Front and look for other ways to end the war as Lawrence of Arabia clashes with Dr. Zhivago. For Tom, Andrew, Kyle, Gabe, and myself, thanks for listening and go catch a flick.
Shh. Quiet.
Sorry. I
Oh, God.
We're dead.
This has been a test of the Southsider Studios podcast system. This was only a test. If this were a true lack of entertainment, your head would explode. Go to iTunes and subscribe to our feed. Just search Southsider Studios.